Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Beartown Road. It is so good to see you here with us. My name's Adam, and I'm one of the pastors at the church. And whether you're joining us here in our building or watching online, we are so thrilled that you are here with us today. We're going to be here for about an hour. We're going to start by singing a couple of songs, and then Dave Brett, who is our lead pastor, is going to start a new sermon series called Time, Treasure, and Talents. Have you ever wished that there were just more hours in the day? It seems like we are constantly being bombarded with more things to add to our schedules. You've got another work meeting, or the kids need you to get them to ballet or whatever ball practice that they are currently part of, and you still have to make dinner at the end of the day for the family. Well, today we want to take a run at how we manage our time. So we're so excited that you are here for this sermon series. Hey, if you're new here and we've never had the opportunity to interact with you, we would love the chance to do that. There are two ways that you can let us know that you are here with us today. The first is to text the word SHIRT to 607-600-2604, and you're going to receive a response with our online communication card. It's going to ask for a little of your information so we can make a record of you being here with us today. Once we have that, we would love to send you a gift. We're going to mail you a bag with 2 t-shirts that have our church logo and a bag of coffee that's been curated by one of the local places in town, just to say thanks for spending some time with us. Now, if you'd rather talk to a real person, grab a communication card from the seat in front of you, fill it out, and bring it to the information desk in the lobby after the service. I'll be there, and I'd love to meet you, give you your gift, and answer any questions you might have about the church. We've got a lot going on here over the next month and a half. So if you have any questions on what I'm about to say, head over to the events page on our website and you can see all of the important details or just check out anything you might have missed. So here are those announcements. We want to make you aware of the first week in April because we have a lot going on. We have 3 opportunities for you to come and spend some time with us at the church. We'll be having a service to celebrate Holy Thursday on April 1st, a family Easter egg coloring day on Saturday the 3rd, and our Easter service will be Sunday the 4th. We hope you guys have some time and can make it out to those events and join us. That's all the announcements we have for today. If you want to go ahead and stand, please put on your mask. We're going to get started with worship through song this morning.
Buried beneath my shade.
morning, we are going to be singing a song that is the encapsulation of the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Christ. As we anticipate the coming Easter season,
my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. Bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah still and all alone. And oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. And on the third at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, tramp of death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God.
After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried out in a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb."
He shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints. My gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. And oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. Oh Lord
a seat at this time. Those who have known God not just as Creator, Savior, and King, but also as Father, know the unusual freedom, security, and joy of being loved by Him. So many times in my own life, I've tried to keep God at an arm's length, at a safe distance, close enough to forgive, to provide, and to deliver, but far enough not to interfere with my own life, my decisions, my sin. And I've learned that the wise and the humble, however, have learned to lower their defenses, to lay down their need for control, and to run to the Father. So what keeps you from running to Him? What fears have made you hesitant and distant? What sins have you refused to leave behind? What burden have you been unwilling to lay on His shoulders? The Father knows what you need. He knows where you've been. He knows what you fear and what you have done. He knows what kind of father you have had, and yet He still invites you to come and to be His, to be fathered by God Himself.
I've carried a burden too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. I see it now, I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, so I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh.
You guys stand and worship.
Oh, oh, oh. You saw my
our friend indeed. Let us run to you with all of our cares. All of our sin, let us just place that at the foot of the cross. God, we love you. We are so thankful for how you are working in each and every one of our lives, in the life of this church, in our community. Let us continue to be salt and light to everyone that we encounter from generation to generation. God, you are our friend, and let us run after you and run to you. Pray this in your heavenly name. Amen. You guys may be seated.
All right, hey, we finishing up this 21-day fast. If you've been around for the past few weeks, today is the final day of the fast. And I must say, I'm so proud of many of you who undertook the fast. Some of you fasted from junk food. Some of you fasted from some meals, social media, and some of you fasted from fasting. And if that's you, if you did not partake of the fast the last 21 days, hey, that's okay, because every Sunday we celebrate the fact that we all get a do-over, right? Every Sunday we gather together on this resurrection day, the day that Jesus rose from the dead, and we celebrate the fact that we get a do-over, and whatever happened this past week, that is in the past, and today is a new day. So really my hope with this 21-day fast that we just finished is that you'll take some of the principles that you learned, and that it wasn't just like cramming for the test and then the test is done and you're like, now I can get back to, and all that different stuff. But you'll actually begin to create a little bit more space in your life for God, that you'll get rid of some of that clutter that kind of infringed on your life, and that we will just be a little bit more peaceful and we'll have a little bit more space. So this series called Time, Treasure, Talent is really an effort to implement some of those things we learned in the past, because really God's given us four things. He's given us all the same four things: time, treasure, talent, and the fourth would be a temple, but we're not going to talk about temple. We're just going to focus on time, treasure, talent. We've all been given time, and we want to use our time wisely because we only get so much of it. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is this whole idea of how to use our time wisely. Now, I got to say, I was impressed. If you were watching online, you didn't see this, but Adam dragged my wardrobe all the way across the stage, which was pretty impressive. Real quick, just picture a closet in your home. Maybe it's your wardrobe in your bedroom. Maybe it's like a game closet in the basement or something in your house. Okay, everyone got that spot? Now, don't raise your hand, but how many of you would say most of my closets are just crammed and stuffed with stuff? And when I open it, stuff just typically falls out, or I just get incredibly stressed out because there's just so much stuff in it, right? How many of you, don't raise your hand, how many of you that's you? Or maybe you're like OCD, or you're just a healthy, neat person, and you open up your closet, it looks good. You got space. If you get a new shirt or some new shoes, you got plenty of room to put it in. You're good about pulling out the old stuff and donating it or throwing it away. It's nice. There's breathing room in your closet. Okay, now, full disclosure, this is a little bit what my closet typically looks like. Make sure nothing falls out here, okay? This is a little bit, and some of you are like, that's not bad at all. That's nothing compared to mine. Others of you are like, yeah, that looks about right. It's just kind of, it's all kind of stuffed together, makes me a little bit nervous, but I don't usually take the effort to pull things out because then I gotta drive down and donate it, or I got some things that are of sentimental value. and it's just kind of crammed in there, and I wish I could clean it up, but I never really take the time to do it. And I typically think to myself, one of these days, I'll get to it. One of these days, I'll make it a little less cluttered, I'll have a little bit more room, and I'll be able to open up my closet and say, that's nice. That's nice. Now, it's okay to have a closet that looks like this. I'm not here to tell you how to organize your drawers or anything like that, but it's not okay to have a life that looks like this, right? It's not okay to have a life that's just where everything's just kind of stuffed in and there's no room for margin, and it just gets a little bit overwhelming. Now, this is a representative of my life. You can put your own things in there, but everything in this closet is good. I didn't put anything bad in there. There are two things in here that are bad and rather scary. I'm going to show you those in a few minutes. But most of what is in here is good, and it represents the different aspects of my life, and many of you can relate, right? You got the whole diaper thing. We got kids' sports, which it's like, do I have them in this sport or that sport? You've got games. I got this game, Speak Out, kids versus parents. Which unfortunately is sometimes our life, kids versus parents, right? But you want to play games with your kids, spend time with your kids, but before you know it, you're like, oh man, the time has gone and they're already teenagers and I wish I had spent more time with them. And things just get overwhelming and they get crammed in there. Again, all good stuff, to quote the great Corrie ten Boom, who spent time in a Nazi concentration camp and had a few wise things to say, said, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy, right? So I can be busy, and sometimes I even wear it as a badge of honor. Like, how you doing today? Oh, I'm busy. I'm so important, right? I got a lot of stuff going on. You should be impressed with how busy I am. Sometimes we wear that as a badge of honor. But again, it's okay if your closet's like this, but when our lives get like this, it's not so good. So I want to talk to you today about a principle, and I'm going to close this right now because some of you who are OCD, you're not even going to be able to pay attention to the sermon because that just makes you so nervous. We'll come back to this, but I want to talk to you about a principle today. I think that it is so profound, it's so practical, that it really does have the ability to change our life, because our life is our time. The way that we spend our time is our life. And this verse, it's really one verse that is powerful, it's punchy, it's practical, and if we start to live this way, it really can reorder our schedules and help us take advantage of this amazing resource that God has given all of us called time. Now, the guy who wrote this psalm, this is Psalm chapter 90, had a few things to say about time. He's worth listening to, and his name is Moses. Now, Moses lived 3,500 years ago. Extraordinary life this guy lived. For the first 40 years of his life, he grew up in an Egyptian palace. He grew up in the home of the most powerful man on planet Earth, the Egyptian Empire, Pharaoh, right? They were the empire for 430 years, and they had Jewish people serve as their slaves. Jewish people basically propped up their economy. And Moses was driving Maseratis and Rolls Royce and Lamborghini. He wore designer clothes. He ate of the finest cuisine every day. It was a good life to be Moses. And he lived this way for 40 years. And then one day, he discovered that the slaves who were serving under Pharaoh, who were Hebrews, that he also was a Hebrew. And one day he saw a Hebrew being mistreated, and so he killed him. Got really angry. I mean, Moses had an anger problem. If you kill somebody, you probably got an anger problem. He kills this guy. Somebody finds out that he kills the Hebrew guy, so Moses has to flee the scene. And he flees to the desert known as Midian, where he lives another 40 years. So think about, you talk about a juxtaposition of seasons of life. 40 years of sitting in the lap of luxury, and now he's got 40 years just spinning around in the desert taking care of sheep all day, right? It's just, the sheep wander off and he goes and he brings them back. The sheep need to find water. He takes them out and brings them back. And Moses has no idea that in years to come, he's going to be a Bible celebrity. He has no idea that he's probably the most revered of all of the humans to the Israelites in the Old Testament scriptures. He has no idea of that. He probably thinks, this is going to be the rest of my life. I'm just going to spin around in the desert of Midian and take care of sheep. and then I'll finish off my days and I'll go to, wherever I'm going to go. That's probably what he thinks. And then after 40 years of being in the desert, he's 80 years old, and he's tending his sheep one day, and he comes up to this bush, and it's on fire. It's called the burning bush. And God speaks to him, right? And God says, I want you to go to Pharaoh, and I want you to let my people go. And he's like, I'm not really very good at talking. I can't speak very, all right, you can get your brother Aaron to do the speaking, but I want you to go. And so Moses eventually goes to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh's like, no way, I'm not going to let you go. They run the entire Egyptian economy. And so Moses goes back, and the plagues come down, all these different plagues, and miraculous plagues to try to get Pharaoh's attention. And then finally, after 10 miraculous plagues, Pharaoh's like, fine, you guys can go. And they leave Egypt for the first time in 430 years. And Moses leads them through the Red Sea. Imagine seeing the Red Sea open up, and this entire nation walks through the Red Sea on dry ground. And Moses is like, now this is exciting. The last 40 years were very exciting. Like the first 40 was cool, but the last 40 has been boring. But I think the rest of my life is going to be awesome because I serve a powerful and an amazing God. So they go through the Red Sea, and then they get out into the wilderness. And Moses is like, all right, we're only going to be in the wilderness for maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. And then we're going to end up in the promised land. That's what he's thinking, right? And so God's like, all right, Moses, I want you to get 12 men, 12 scouts to go scout out the promised land. So he gets 12 guys from the 12 tribes of Israel. They go into the promised land, and they discover there are giants everywhere, right? There's big grapes, lots of fruit. It's a tremendous piece of real estate. It's 70 degrees and sunny right on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. And they come back, these 12 guys, and they say, it is amazing. It's a beautiful piece of real estate, but ain't no way we're going to be able to beat those giants. The cities are too well fortified. The walls are too tall and thick. There's no way we can do it. And yet Joshua and Caleb are like, let's do it. We believe that God's going to remove their protection and that we're going to be able to go in and capture this piece of land. And yet all of the people side with the other 10 spies. And you read the account in Numbers 14, and they say, oh, great. It would have been better for us to be back in Egypt where we could have at least died peacefully. Now we're going to die out here at the hands of the Canaanites. Hey, let's elect a new leader and head back to Egypt. And Moses is like, oh, man, you serious? And so God notices that they don't have faith that he's going to give them the promised land. And so God says this to the nation of Israel due to their lack of belief. He says, your children will be shepherds here for 40 years. And Moses is like, oh, great. I mean, I just finished up serving a 40-year sentence as a shepherd, and now I got to serve another 40 years because of the lack of belief. And God's like, yeah. Everybody under the age of 20, the children of Israel, they will inherit the promised land. But all of the adults over the age of 20 are going to die in the wilderness. And so Moses, who's probably like, I thought I was heading to the glory land. I thought we were going to cross the Jordan and have the land flowing with milk and honey, and now I got to lead these people who just keep on grumbling and complaining. It's a tough life. It's a difficult task that Moses is given. And I think that in the context of this, that it's where Moses pens Psalm 90, which in your Bible is entitled A Prayer of Moses, the man of God. And he is truly the man because he is, in my opinion, one of the greatest leaders who's ever lived. And this is a man who had something to say about time. This is a man who understood about our days and how to steward our time even when you're in the desert. So here's what Moses writes in Psalm 90. And the Psalms, again, they're kind of these like this moment of like gushing forth your raw emotions to God. And they're such a beautiful thing to read, especially when you're struggling. I think Moses is struggling a little bit, right? As they're out in the desert, he says this, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Maybe Moses is thinking, I don't love the fact that we're out here in the desert. I wish we were in the promised land, but you've always been with us. You've always been our dwelling place. If you were here a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Jacob who went to Bethel and had that dream, the stairway to heaven, right? And he says, surely God was in this place and I didn't notice it. And then he goes back to Bethel and he names it El Bethel, which means the God of the house of God. God, you've always been our dwelling place. Even if I don't feel your presence, you're with me, right? We've always been with you throughout all generations. Even the 435 years that our nation was enslaved in Egypt, you were with us. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. From beginning to end, you always were and you will always be. You are the everlasting God. You, God, turn men back to dust, saying, return to dust, O sons of men. Just sounds like a movie line, doesn't it, from Gandalf or Lord of the Rings or something. Return to dust. Right? Here's what Moses is saying. He's saying, God, you are the author of life, you're the sustainer of life, and you're the finisher of life. You have the final say when it comes to life. And all of us someday are going to return to dust. Then he says this, for 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. A watch in the night is about 4 hours. 1,000 years seems like a long time. But he says it's like 4 hours to God. In other words, this passage, which was written in ancient Hebrew, the language doesn't even exist anymore. It's a dead language. This was written 3,500 years ago. And Moses is saying, I know 3,500 years ago sounds like a lot to you, but it's like 14 hours to God. I know we celebrate that Jesus rose from the dead 2,000 years ago, but that's like 8 hours to God. What seems like a long time goes by like that. Moses goes on, he says, you sweep men away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning, though in the morning it springs up new, by evening it is dry and withered. You ever plant grass in your backyard and you're really excited for the grass to come through and it takes like forever because you didn't get the right kind of fertilizer? And you keep looking out the window, and you're like, when is this grass gonna come through? And then finally, one day, you go out and you see the little green blades of grass, and you're like, yes, yes, new life. It's gonna cover up my wretched lawn that has been scorched by the sun. Here's what it says. You get excited by the new grass, but by evening, it's just withered. Just a few hours later, it withers away. It goes by so quickly. He says, and again, this is kind of an emotive psalm where I think Moses is kind of just struggling with life. He says, we are consumed by your anger and we're terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins, in the light of your presence. We just sang a song about that. Run to the Father. It talks about bringing your sins into the light, which is like the last thing we want to do. Oftentimes when it comes to the sins that we have that we hope never get discovered, it is one of the biggest time killers, isn't it? Because we're talking about time. It's an emotional drainer. It's a time killer, and it hurts the people around you. So Moses says, you got to bring those secret sins into the light. Now, I told you that in this closet, which is making, some of you really, really nervous, and others of you are like, well, no big deal. In this closet, I put a bunch of good things, that we really got to kind of figure out how to live our lives with wisdom. But Moses is talking about these things these secret sins that wear us down. Another word for secret sins, or a phrase, is skeletons in the closet. And it could be like a big sin where you've got some things going on in your life and you're working really hard to get that skeleton to just stay back there so that nobody can see what's going on. And the harder you work to stuff back this secret sin, the more exhausting it is and the more you hurt the people that you love. So Moses says, get the secret sins out in the light, right? And it could be a big thing, or it could be a little secret sin. Let's get a little close up on this little secret sin buddy right here. Because oftentimes it's the little, like the big ones, like you know what the big ones are, but it's those little ones that are just like, ha, 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 I'm just going to stay back and you're barely even going to notice me. But Moses says, you got to get them out in the light. It's like that log in your backyard that's just sitting there for years, and then you finally tip it over and you see all the squiggly, nasty little things with 1,000 legs on it, and you're like, ah! And then finally you tip it over and it gets into the light, and then the next day they're gone. Right? Here's what Moses is saying. Look, if you got secret sins, get them out in the light. It's going to be painful at first, but it's going to be worth it in the end because you don't have that much time to live. Life is too short to keep on trying to conceal the skeletons in your closet. So get them out and deal with them and be free. Be free. Secret sins in the light of your presence. Moses goes on, he says this, all our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. That's how we finish our years. Now, I don't mean to be morbid here, but it's worth being morbid for at least a moment. I told you a few whiles back, one of the things that I really value in ministry is getting the opportunity to do somebody's funeral, because it's this moment where we're all confronted with our own mortality. You've got a casket up front, you've got a body, and you've got a loved one, and you're smacked in the face with this illustration of your own mortality, the brevity of life, the quickness of life. And here's the amazing thing. I was talking with my friend this morning about this. Many of you, you've known people who are spry in their old age, and they're on the ball and they're encouraging and they're always serving other people, and you're like, man, I hope I'm like that when I'm in my 80s. But then when you look at their last of days, whether it's their last few weeks or last few days and even their last few hours, it's never very impressive. Most people go out in a very humiliating way. They go out with a moan. They go out looking haggard and worn out. In some cases, the disease has gotten them, and their minds are so gone, they say things that don't even make sense, where it was just a few years ago that they were so on top of things and spry. Moses is saying, look, we're all going to finish our years with a moan. It's not going to end well for most of us, probably, well, for all of us. It's not going to end well. Aren't you glad you came to church today? And then he goes on and he says, the length of our days is 70 years or 80 if we have the strength. Now, if you're watching online right now, or you're in the room and you're 80 years old, just turn to your neighbor real quick and just go like this. Yeah, because I got the strength, y'all young whippersnappers, right? Now, some of us, we might be blessed and we might live until we're in our 90s. Some of you might even live till you're in your 100s. That would be amazing. But we're pretty much going to get like somewhere in the 80s, right? And unless there's a tragedy, we'll probably, most of us will make it to our 80s if we have the strength. And that's just, according to God, that's just a few hours. You just get a few hours to live. He says, yet their span is but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass. And let's all sing it together. I'll fly away, oh glory, Yeah, we need to get a choir up in here, right? We all fly away. Our souls fly away to go be somewhere. So he says, look, who knows the power of your anger? For your wrath is as great as the fear that is due you. And now Moses gives the verse that I really want to focus on, because this is so profound. You might want to memorize this. This is Psalm chapter 90, verse 12. This is so good. Here's what he says. In light of all this, in light of the fact that you are the author and the sustainer and the finisher of life, and that my life is going to go like that it passes by quickly, and when it ends, it's going to be humiliating when it ends. In light of all of that, God, would you please, Moses says, teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Let's all say this verse together. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. This is such a good prayer. You know why? Because I tend to live my life as if I'll live forever. I tend to live my life as, I'll eventually get there. I'll eventually, be able to play with my kids more, or I'll eventually be able to do, whatever it is. But for right now, I got to do this, right? Especially if you're on the younger side of the spectrum. Like if you're, okay, don't be offended by this. If you're like, so I'm 43 years old. So if you're under the age of 50, you're still young, right? Amen? And when you get to your 50s, you're still young. I've been told, I talked to a 54-year-old guy this past week. He just turned 54, and he said, I just started thinking about the fact that my days are in fact numbered. Whereas when you're a little bit younger, you don't think about that. You just tend to think, I'll live forever, right? I'll get to those other things when they hit me in the face, but I'm just going to kind of, bide my time. He says, no. We all have a number of days. God, would you teach me to number my days that I may gain a heart of wisdom? Because when I say, okay, my days are numbered, God, give me a heart of wisdom so that I can know how to spend my days. My days are limited. So God, would you give me the wisdom to know how to limit my time? Say it again. My days are limited. God, would you give me the wisdom to know how to limit my time? So I drew a map on here. This is my own little homemade map. In the story of Moses, it's a little bit sad, to be honest with you, because after spending 40 years in the desert, God's like, all right, you guys can go in, but not you, Moses. He's like, you can stand up on the hill and see the promised land because your eyes are still good, but you're not going to go into the promised land. And Moses is like, really? Seriously? And in some ways, that's really good news, because even though Moses never got to see the vision, even though he never got to see the promised land, Moses is like, it's not about me anyway. It's about the legacy. It's about the people that I've invested in. It's about my children. And some of you, that's a good word, right? That's a good word because you're in the desert right now, right? You're in the desert, and I don't know what the desert looks like for you, but it could be you got little kids at home, and you're like, oh, this is the desert. Or maybe you're in school right now and you're like, I cannot wait to get out of school and get a job. Or maybe your marriage is just struggling right now and you feel like it's a desert. Your soul just feels dry, right? Here in New York, the desert is January and February. But the good news is in a couple of days, it's about to be in the mid-60s, right? On Wednesday, we're about to come into the promised land. And in a few weeks, I'm about to cross the back gate of my neighbor, known as the Jordan River, and enter the promised land of milk and peaches and cream. Yes. Oh, will that be a glorious day? I'll fly away out of my house into peaches and cream. Okay, so look, this is the vision. And we want to be in the promised land. Nobody wants to be the desert. Nobody likes the desert. Nobody likes to be just spinning around tending sheep. Moses spinning around. We want to be in the promised land. But here's the good news. Sometimes the best work that God does in your heart is in the desert. Sometimes God's like, he's creating steel in your soul. He's building up your character. Right? He's forming you and he's shaping you like that piece of clay that's in his hands, just saying, I'm going to sharpen you a little bit while you're in this desert. You're not ready to go into the promised land yet. You gotta get to know the promise keeper before you can come into the promised land. I know you're out of Egypt, but Egypt hasn't left you yet. So you need to stay in the desert a little bit to get a little sharper, to get a little closer before you get that vision that I've gotten for you. And here's the temptation. This is huge. The temptation is that while you're in the desert, that you will wish away your days. And I'll tell you, I've wished away too many days. I've wished away too many days. My earliest memory was when I was 3 years old. I'll never forget this. I was 3 years old. I was in my room, and Mom comes into the room, and she says, David, she still calls me David. She said, David, it's time for you to take a nap. I said, I don't want to take a nap. She said, you need to take a nap. You're only 3 years old. And I said to her, I'm not 3, I'm 6. And she was like, and I think it's because I had an older sister that was 5, and I wanted to be a little bit older than my sister. See, my earliest memory was as a child wishing away my days. And then I got into kindergarten. I got a memory from kindergarten. And I remember I was in Mrs. Didae's kindergarten class, and one day the high school kids came into the class, and I thought to myself, that'd be amazing to be in high school. I can't wait to be in high school, but that'll probably never happen. It's so far away, right? High school's so far in the distance. And when you're a kid, it does take a long time to get to high school. The days just drag by as a kid. But then, before you know it, you're in high school. And you get to high school, and you're like, I can't wait to be done with high school. I can't wait to go to college. And you wish away your days. And then you get into college. And I loved high school and I loved college, but then you get to college, you're like, I can't wait to get out of college so I can have a real job. And then you get out of college and you get a job, and then you're single. I got married when I was 29, so I had a few single years. And I'm like, I cannot wait to get out of this desert of singlehood and finally meet somebody. Then you meet somebody, right? And then you have kids. And then you're like, I cannot wait until these kids get out the house, right? It's just wishing away all our days. And then, now I got a 18-month-old all the way to an 11-year-old. I can't speak beyond that. But some of you, like you're married right now and you don't have any kids. Oh, that's the good life. You should just enjoy those days. Or if you're an empty nester, I don't know how you struggle with anything. I don't know how you struggle. I don't know how you have any bad days if you're an empty nester. But that's naivete. You can talk to me after the service. Okay? So, but I know there are struggles with empty nest. I've heard empty nesters say to me, oh man, for the days when my kids were little. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Okay, so you got the empty nester. Some of you are retired right now, and you earned it. You earned your retirement. And I have to say, we got some people in this church that do so much for this church and for the kingdom in their retirement days, right? This is a good season where you got a little bit extra time, and you got some energy, and you're serving the church. We're so grateful for those of you who are retired. But it's so easy to wish away our days. And my encouragement to you is whatever season you are in, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. For tomorrow's got enough trouble of its own. I don't need to add any more strain onto my life thinking about the next season of life. Some of y'all are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm like, I can't wait till my kids are teenagers. And those of you with teenagers are like, you crazy, right? But there are days where I'm like, I just got diapers everywhere, right? And it's like, I can't wait to get out of diapers. I mean, not me literally, but I can't wait. I can't wait, right? I can't wait until I can just give Cody the diapers. And then I need to pause and I need to say, no, this is a good season right here, right? There's blessings in this season. I can't wish away these days because our days, it's like 8 hours in God's sight. It goes by so quickly. You in the desert right now? Don't wish away your days. Press into Christ and serve him with everything that you got. Now, my argument is the second greatest leader in the nation of Israel would be David. You know, David who slayed Goliath and became the greatest king of Israel. David agreed with Moses. Here's what he said. Lord, remind me how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered, how fleeting my life is, because I so easily forget. I tend to think, well, I've got all the time in the world. Remind me. Remind me that my days are numbered. God, you have made my life no longer than the width of my hand. My entire lifetime is just a moment to you at best. Each of us is but a breath. Whew. Each of us has a moment, a little slice of time to do the greatest amount of good for the kingdom that we can do. Let's not wish it away. Here's what James said, the brother of Jesus. He said it like this. He said, this is James chapter 4. He writes this. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Everyone watch this real closely, okay? Watch this. How long was that? Like 3 seconds. James says, it comes and goes so quickly. Back to Psalm 39, to David, he says this, we are merely moving shadows and all our busy rushing ends in nothing. All this busy rushing, I gotta get the sports activities in. I gotta make sure I play games. I got all these sports, and I gotta make sure I don't know, I'm not sure what that represents. I gotta make sure, I gotta make sure I, get a hobby in here, and I got construction projects, and I'll tell you one of my struggles right now, some of you can relate to this, is what my 18-month-old wants to do is not what my 11-year-old wants to do, right? And so it's like, I need wisdom to know how to use my time, right? We got this. I'll tell you what the biggest, can I just vent for a second here? Laundry. Oh, laundry. That is like the most necessary evil, but I hate laundry. But it's like, I gotta get all this in. I got all this, it's all good stuff. And then here's what happens. My relationship with God, it gets shoved to the back instead of saying, well, no, I'm gonna put him on the top shelf. I'm gonna make him the top priority and ask him for wisdom so that I can know how to reorder my life. Because again, this is all good stuff. But if we're not careful, we'll get to the end of our lives and say, I'm not sure I used it very well. So he says, Lord, where do I put my hope? My only hope is in you. My only hope is in you. My only hope is that you would give me wisdom how to use these short days for your honor. The Apostle Paul, he agreed with these guys. Here's what he says. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. All right, just like Moses says, give me a heart of wisdom. I want to know your will. I want to be wise with my time. And then he says this, making the most of every opportunity because the days are running out quickly. Help me to make the most of every opportunity. Let me just talk to those of you who are in middle school or high school right now. Okay? Middle school, high school. You looking at me right now? You got me right here? Okay? Middle school, high school. Don't wish your high school days away. I'll tell you, when I was in high school, I never rubbed shoulders with more unchurched people than I did when I was in high school. Now, everybody I work with is already a Christian because I work at a church. But man, like high school, like you're rubbing shoulders with all these unchurched, what an opportunity. Make the most of this opportunity. Don't wish your high school days away. All right? College students, this is gold, okay? Write this down. When you get to college, pursue friendship more than you're gonna pursue romantic relationship. Make the most of every opportunity. Build into friendship. Don't get distracted. Don't wish your days away. Right? If you got little ones, if you got people at home, teenagers at home, don't wish those days away. God's forming and shaping and creating steel in your spirit. Don't wish your days away. For those of you who are empty nesters, you're retired, don't wish your days away. Make the most of every opportunity that is given to you. Don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Say, God, what's your will? What's your will for my life? What do you want me to do with these very, very short days that you've given me? And here's just, I love this verse, Matthew 6, he says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Seek first him, and then he'll give you the wisdom to know his will. God, teach me to number my days. Teach me to remember that I only have a few days on this earth. Give me a heart of wisdom that I may know your will to use my time wisely. Our life, it's going to go by so quickly. And what we do now, to quote the great gladiator, echoes in eternity. The legacy that you leave now with your children and your coworkers and your family members and your friends, it echoes throughout eternity. Even though Moses never saw the promised land, his legacy was extraordinary. And we are all beneficiaries of Moses's legacy. So here's what I want to leave you with, okay? There is a card in your seat back, okay? And it looks like this. Everybody grab it right now. I got 2 cards, one for this service, one for the next. It looks like this. Pull it out. On the back, it says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And there's 4 lines, okay? The first line is, what do you need to add to your life? The next line is, what do you need to subtract from your life? During this 21-day fast, some of you learned that there are things in your life that need to go away forever. There are skeletons in my closet that I need to deal with, and I need to push them out forever. For some of you, you may introduce those things back into your life, but it's not going to have a hold on you anymore. You're going to be free from it. It's not going to be an idol. What do you need to add to your life? What do you need to subtract? What do you need to do more of, and what do you need to do less of? I would ask you, take this card home, talk about it with your spouse or your girlfriend, your significant other. If you're in your small group this week, my small group's going to be talking about this tonight. Whatever curriculum you're doing, do that curriculum, but spend at least a few minutes to talk about what am I going to do to make sure that I'm numbering my days and I'm using my time wisely. And here's the truth. Whenever you start to pull things out of your life, right, you've got more space. Whenever you start to say, I'm gonna unclutter my life a little bit. I'm gonna spend time with Jesus. I'm gonna spend time with the Lord. You know, maybe for some of you, you have this pursuit book and you never went through it, but that's okay. Today's a do-over. One of our elders, Kevin, said this the other day, and I agree with him. He said, because we did this book before the church, he said the second time through was better than the first, and I would agree with him, right? Pick it up and do it again. This book, it's just a great devotional, right? You pull stuff out, which gives you more space for God. God, would you teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom, and that we would go before God and say, God, what's your will for my life in this season? Maybe I need to do less kids' activities. Maybe I need to spend more time with my kids. Maybe I need to spend more time with Jesus. Maybe I need to make Sunday morning a priority, and I'm there every single Sunday morning, and it's just becomes a habit. Maybe small group, as we're going to start up in small groups. We'll start the new semester in a few weeks. Maybe small group needs to be a priority for your life. We're going to do it every week, and we're going to be there. We're going to make it a priority so that we can invest in God and our relationship with others. What is it that you need to add, subtract, do more of, and do less of? Teach us, God, to number our days, because we don't have very many of them. Comes and it goes like a mist. It comes and it goes like a breath. God, would you give us wisdom to know how to use this precious resource called time? Give us wisdom to take advantage of every moment that you have given us. Let's take this card home, talk about it, write it down, and then do it. Amen? Let me pray for you, and then we'll get you out of here. God, we love you. We thank you for this word from Moses, who gives us wisdom and insight into this profound principle that we've only got a few days, and we want to use them better. Help us to do that. Give us your wisdom and give us your strength to live our days wisely, making the most of every opportunity for our good and for your glory. You are the matchless, majestic God who has blessed us with this gift of time. Would you help us to use it wisely? It's in the precious name of God, who is the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, that we pray. And all God's people said, amen. Thanks for being here today. We love you guys so much, and we will see you next week for part 2 as we talk about treasure. Have a great day, everybody.